So what if your AI isn't just powered by machines?
It's people.
That's Charlton Heston in the 1970s sci-fi film Soylent Green. You probably haven't seen it, but I think you know the memes. The big twist in that movie is that the miracle food of the future is actually made of people. Now today, the miracle of the future being promised is AI, and it's also built on people, millions of them, who work behind the scenes.
It has been intentional that has been hidden. The labor of hundreds of millions of data workers who not only contribute to the development of AI systems, but also are fundamental for keeping them working.
And that trend line is going up, just the way Silicon Valley likes it.
This work is exponentially growing and has been growing for the past 20 years.
But AI is gonna fix this, right? Automate all those mundane, sometimes emotionally harmful jobs? Purge the world of drudgery?
Sorry to disappoint you, that won't be the case.
Welcome to Life with Machines, powered by Lenovo. I'm Baratunde Thurston. Guess what? This is our final episode of season 1. No, but we need a break. But give us more content. But it's an endless treadmill. But gosh, you're still human. Yes, we are. Now we are closing this season out with a banger of a voice in an episode featuring Milagros Miceli. She goes by Mila, and she's a sociologist and computer scientist born in Argentina, but now based in Berlin. Her research centers on the humans behind AI systems. While much of the world is loudly chasing machine superintelligence, Mila has been quietly documenting the human labor that props it all up. And what she's found is staggering.
Around the world, there are between 130 million and 430 million workers doing data work.
Wait, what? Why is no one talking about this? That's larger than the population of the US.
It has been hidden.
On purpose. Behind every breathless headline about AI, there's another messier story made of people. And it's really the story at the heart of this podcast. This season, we've been asking how we make use of AI in ways that make us more, not less human. So many of our guests have offered visions of what that good future might look like. Verity Harding reminded us that we've done this before.
Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin leave the moon and they leave behind the plaque that says, we came in peace for all mankind. 2 years before we land on the moon, we say space is the province of all mankind, and it will be peaceful.
Sam Gregory reminded us that it's not enough to make AI available. It has to work for everyone.
They have to work as equally well for someone in Myanmar as in Brooklyn. They have to work as equally well for the walkie-talkie conversation in Sudan as for the threads or Reels or Instagram video in the US.
Van Jones saw something even more radical in that potential.
Suddenly, you've got something that's starting to look more like a level playing field for the first time.
Sarah Hooker challenged us to think beyond the default setting of the English language and set our sights much higher.
How do we build really AI for 101 worlds and not just one world?
And Rahaf Harfouche said it best when she shared a vision of a solar punk future.
Every time people are like dystopian future, I'm like, no, solar punk. Like, what would that look like for us in AI? Technology that works with nature, technology that empowers people to learn in ways that make sense to them, technology that strengthens connections, technology that makes education affordable, healthcare accessible. Like, all of that is right there.
We've looked at voice and identity, surveillance and agency, creativity and constraints. At each turn, we've come back to one idea. It's not just the code, but the people behind it that will determine the kind of world we create. And that brings us to today with Mila. We're talking about the ghost workers inside our machines, the conditions they face, and the resistance they're mounting, from Kenya to Bulgaria to Buenos Aires. We get into what it means to train a machine to replace you, and whether the truth is enough to change our behavior. Spoiler alert, it ain't.
I'm still buying those sneakers. I'm sorry.
And we also talk about a little something called AI washing. This is where a company pretends to have AI, but it's just people typing on the other side of the screen. And it's happening a lot more than you think.
You might think, oh, okay, well, I'm talking to a chatbot. Well, sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. Breaking news. Sometimes you are talking to our collaborator, whose job is to literally talk to people who think that they are talking to Meta AI and they are not.
So this episode may not be the ending you expected, but it's one we all need. Over the summer, we'll continue posting to YouTube and our Substack newsletter, sharing highlights, insights, more fun with Blair, and ways to make sure that the future of AI is built by all people. Don't miss any of that. Subscribe to our YouTube and to our email newsletter at lifewithmachines.media. Now for Mila. Milagros Micheli, welcome to Life with Machines.
Thank you very much, Baratunde, for having me.
Most of us imagine artificial intelligence as an independent, self-learning technology. But your work suggests that is not the entire story. So I'd love to know from you, what's the part we're not seeing?
I would like to remain positive. So I wouldn't say people are not seeing. I'm saying people are starting to see something that has been concealed for way too long. And I would say it has been intentional that has been hidden. And that is the labor of hundreds of millions of data workers around the world who not only contribute to the development of AI systems, but also are fundamental for maintaining those systems, for keeping them actually working.
So behind all of this artificial intelligence, you said there's hundreds of millions of people, of data workers.
That's correct.
That's a big number.
That is a big number. So it is very hard to know how many people do this work exactly. When I say hundreds of millions, I'm basing this estimate on what the World Bank said last year. They released a report in which they said that around the world there are between 130 million people and 430 million workers doing data work.
To what type of AI systems is that work being applied? You know, is this in the computer vision systems for facial recognition? Is this in the chatbots that we're using? Is this in the autocomplete on my smartphone?
All of the above. So all of it, in different ways. They are present in many stages of the development and, again, the maintenance of those systems, and many more.
Do you see this invisible workforce growing or shrinking in the near future?
That's the thing. So what we observe, and when I say we, I say me, my team, but also colleagues at other institutions, universities in other regions, doing different type of work around data work. What we all agree upon is that this work is exponentially growing and has been growing for the past, say, 20 years. The growth of the workforce doesn't stop, and this is also one argument that speaks against those arguments that say, well, we will automate all this, we won't need these workers in the near future.
That is so counter to all the messaging that most of us are getting. And when you use a term like growing exponentially, I can see that in LLM intelligence. I can see that in tensor processing unit time. I can see that in inference time and latency. The idea that the human labor behind these automated systems also needs to grow exponentially feels like, one, we're just going to run out of people. Like, that's the whole point of these systems, is to not rely on people. But if there's just more people underneath of all this, what's the limit here?
Well, the thing is, here we need to really clearly separate what is hype and what is true, right? So you're right. The thing is, well, if these technologies keep on growing in the way that they are growing, if they continue to be used so massively for things that, let me tell you, don't even require that type of solution, don't even require AI. Of course, we will run out of people. Not only of people, we will run out of many things. We will run out of water. We will run out of, resources, natural resources to maintain those systems. So I'm sorry to arrive so early to the conclusion that the ways in which AI technologies are being developed today is unsustainable, not only in terms of the people and the workforce and the labor that is necessary to keep it going.
I'd love to understand the nature of the work. Hundreds of millions of people affecting the development and maintenance of pretty much everything we call AI. Can you lay out what are the types of work that data workers underneath of these AI systems are doing?
When we talk about data work, we researchers have classified that into 4 types of tasks. Of course, as technologies evolve, those change and evolve with the technologies and what, and also with what the market demands. First of all, we are talking about what we call data generation. And when we say data generation, we are saying, okay, well, tasks could look like go online and scrape every, picture of cats that you can find. That could be a task. But sometimes data generation is more complicated than that. Sometimes data generation is go in your neighborhood and take pictures of people. We want people faces from your neighborhood, and of course that's difficult, and that's you need to get consent. In the ideal case, the companies, the requesters will demand you to go get consent from those people. You need to get that, you need to do the task, so on. Then there are requirements in terms of how light needs to be, and what the picture needs to look like, quality, and so on. Sometimes those tasks could be like, please record your voice, read this passage, and record yourself saying that with different accents and so on, different types of voices. So that's data generation. Data entry also belongs to data generation.
What about synthetic data? Right. I've understood that most of the data that's in these systems was scraped, in your example of scraping images or scraping blogs or review sites, et cetera, like that. And we may be running short of those sources. So we're now using machines to create more data. But there's humans also generating data. So what more can you tell me about the types of data that people are making, and what types of people are being enlisted in this generation task?
Of course, the hype will tell us, well, now everything is synthetic data, so no worries anymore. But copyright, you don't need to worry about your data. You don't need to worry about your images. Copyright, what's that? It's all synthetic. But that's only half of the truth. The other thing that is being done, and this very, very broadly, is creating companies requesting professional workers like writers, like artists, like translators and interpreters, journalists, to go and do data work in terms of generating what will be proprietary data. So journalists are asked to, please write a short piece about this event. Writers are asked, please write a short story about this. Translators, so on. Please translate this.
That's ironic, especially for the categories of people you've described. So I've imagined the data workers as a global South worker, as a gig worker, and not necessarily at this highly educated professional end of the spectrum. But these types of knowledge workers, the writers, the artists, the journalists, are also being, their livelihoods are being threatened by AI.
Exactly. In their own words, in the words of a journalist that worked with us for our project, he says, well, I'm actually literally training my replacement. And I know I'm doing that, but what option do I have? I don't get writing gigs as I used to.
We all know that technology doesn't always run smoothly. But here at Life with Machines, Lenovo has it on lock. Lenovo's Smarter AI is your AI. Personalized and easy to scale, Smarter AI delivers outcomes that matter most to you and your business. With full-stack AI hardware, software, and service solutions, Lenovo is bringing the transformative power of AI to industries, organizations, and people of all kinds. And listen, Lenovo is so much more than a bunch of stellar individual hardware components. I love using my wireless VoIP headset with my AI PC because combined, it's incredible power in the lightest of forms. Now, from a small team like ours to a massive corporation, Lenovo can provide tailored solutions for all your technological needs. Visit lenovo.com/smarterAI to discover how Lenovo is using AI for good to power people forward. Well, here's an option. Does that journalist use AI to write the article for the AI?
Well, if we want to talk about resistance, there is some resistance in there. Data workers are using AI to actually go through those tasks easily or in an easier manner. Then we have what is typically called data labeling or data annotation. So those are more interpretative type of tasks in which a worker looks at a data point and says, what's that? What's in there? Let's imagine an image, a landscape. So the person would typically label, well, those are mountains, those are, this is a road, this is a car, this is a person. That might sound very innocent and harmless. But I have observed instances of data annotation, and those were very popular, let's say 5 years ago when facial recognition was hyping, in which workers needed to classify people in terms of race, in terms of gender, in terms of age, and all that, guessing someone's race from an image, which is, of course, an impossible thing to do. So that's data annotation. Third type of task is what we call algorithmic verification. So that's interacting with an AI system. Let's say you spend your day interacting with ChatGPT, ask ChatGPT stuff, and then you classify those outputs in terms of, for example, toxic, not toxic, or acceptable, toxic. And finally, there's a type of task that not a lot of people know of, and that is what we call AI impersonation. It's in the name, is data workers pretending to be AI systems. And that is more common. Oh, yeah, I can see you're surprised. Yes, you're right to be shocked. But it's not, it's very common. It happens. Sometimes workers are instructed to reply as if they were a chatbot and not a person, which sounds, it's very funny, right? Because these workers are supposed to be there to teach AI systems to think or to be more like humans or to resemble humanity. And then they are tasked with, well, now you need to be the robot. So reply like a chatbot. Another case that I have personally observed doing fieldwork was a case in which, well, a so-called smart camera. Do you know what a smart camera is?
I think I have it at my home. It tells me that's a package or there's an animal.
Exactly.
moving.
Or there's an anomaly. They kind of react to anomalies, whatever that is. They are programmed to see as an anomaly. Well, this was a smart camera that was supposed to monitor patients, so to check elderly patients, so to check whether they fall from bed or, they have a stroke or they are having, they are in distress. What those patients didn't know is that they were not being monitored by an algorithm. They were being monitored by a group of data workers in Syria who were, in a very, very small, similar to warehouse type of office, being monitored, like monitoring screens 24/7 where you could see patients basically in their beds. And there are many similar cases.
Wow. All right. So I am processing all of this. That's just weird, man. Like pretend to be a robot, is just a strange assignment for a human that is supposed to be training the robot, as you said, to be more like us?
I have been doing this work for 7 years, so I've heard many and I've seen many stories. The most recent one is one of the data workers that has been hired through a platform by Meta, and what she does is to talk to people on Facebook. So to hold conversations on Facebook. Facebook now is full of AI BS.
Yeah, Meta AI. It's in WhatsApp. It's in Facebook Messenger.
Exactly.
It's sliding into my DMs on Instagram. I can't get away from it.
Right. Yeah. So that's what's happening. And you might think, it's sliding into your DMs on Facebook. And you might think, oh, okay, well, I'm talking to a chatbot. Well, sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. Breaking news. The problem is people who think they are talking to that chatbot, and they are actually literally talking to a person, maybe revealing personal information to that person, they need to know about this.
That part. I mean, we've had on this show Allison Darcy, creator of Woebot, and I've heard this in other places, but Allison had such a specific point that we humans, are much more comfortable divulging things to a robot, to a synthetic system.
Absolutely. It is a severe violation. I wouldn't want that happening to me. And it is true that people seem to feel more comfortable revealing stuff to a technology, to an AI or to a robot, whatever.
I feel like I've been conscripted into that workforce every time I fill out a CAPTCHA. Like they have gotten pretty transparent that I am picking, oh, that's a traffic light, that's not a traffic light, that's a bus, that's a motorcycle, that's a mountain, that's a river. So is that also a form of data work, like us logging into our accounts and categorizing images?
Baratunde, you said it. That's data work. And this is something very, very important also to convey. This is not a problem of other people, or this is not a problem of precarized workers somewhere, very far away from us. We are all data workers. We've all been made to data workers in a way.
You have made reference to collaborators. You've used the word we. You've talked about reports. It makes me want to get very clear about in what circumstance are you doing this? How do you come to learn these things about data workers? Who's the we in this case? This sounds very investigative, maybe even risky. Behind the scenes, a little Mission Impossible vibe I'm getting here.
It is. It is not easy work. I mean, sometimes I wonder if I should be doing something else. So I've been doing this work. I've been working with communities of data workers for 7 years now. I started, like many other researchers, with field work. That means going places, talking to people. So I went to Buenos Aires first. Located a company that did this type of work where data workers worked. And then I started talking to them. I was observing, taking notes and so on. I did the same in Bulgaria. And then I did the same in, I don't know how many countries anymore. At one point, it felt weird to be talking for other people, because in the end, that's what we do, right? So I do this research and then I write my papers. People cite me, but this is someone else's knowledge. And also the question of what did the change for the workers? What does this research do for them? Because what I was observing was really obscene, I would say, in many cases. I've worked with communities of data workers that were refugees. I worked with communities of data workers that were recruited in slums in very, very poor parts of very poor cities, in Nairobi, in Kenya, in Buenos Aires, the same. So, very vulnerable people. So in the end, it was like, oh, well, I'm getting my PhD. What are they getting? So as soon as I could gather some funds, and I could gather some, let's say, power to do so, to make the decisions around to shape my own research. What I did is creating a methodology to engage data workers to do their own research. Research in their workplace, with their colleagues, and research that is not only aimed at informing us all about what's going on with them, but also about that aims at workers organizing, workers talking to each other. So research as a means for people talking to each other and actually organizing. And that's the Data Workers Inquiry. That's the name of our project, in which we have so far engaged 16 data workers in 6 countries who have produced their own research.
Did you have a moment as you started this work that really pulled you into it?
I was in Bulgaria doing field work at a company that would target or would recruit workers from a refugee camp nearby. So I was doing field work there, and next to me, we were labeling satellite images, and to me it was extremely difficult. I couldn't pass the first image. It was not just labeling, but also segmenting them. One of the category was like grass, bush, and tree. And I was like, this is from above. I have no idea if this is a bush or a tree. And I don't know if this is, a stone or a roof. And what is this? And, and I could see the people next to me. They were like very fast. And I was like, am I dumb? So I started talking to the person next to me. And she was from Syria. She was a refugee from Syria who had recently arrived in Sofia in Bulgaria. And she would say, I was like, how come are you so fast? And she was like, well, I kind of recognize the terrain. I kind of recognize the architecture. So I know, what a roof looks like in my area. So this is clearly a roof and this is a rock. And I recognize like kind of the vegetation. So it's not really difficult. She was like not even understanding why it was hard for me. So we got to talk, and then I asked her, do you know what this is for? And her answer was, not certainly, but I hope it's not for weapons. Yeah. And in the end, it was for drones. And it hit me that some of these people, they are even, it's so terrible that they are even working and fueling the very same technologies that have contributed to their displacement or their misery, their tragedy. And that was one of those moments.
That's a powerful experience, and it feels parallel to the story of the writer and the journalists who are, doing their tasks for the system that is economically, displacing them. You mentioned content moderation as one of these tasks. You have to hear things or read things or see things that may be very disturbing. What are the types of content that data workers are reviewing? And what have you seen of the toll that can take on them?
Content moderators take the highest toll of it when it comes to disturbing material. But I have to say, I have interviewed hundreds of data workers so far, and most of them have encountered somehow disturbing material in one way or another. And in most cases, it has been without a warning. So they are reviewing material that has to do with sexual abuse, with torture, with murder, with self-harm, and in many cases, bad things done to children, to animals. There are workers who are doing this for day in, day out, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, for as much as $1.50 an hour. Who's talking about that?
What happens when these workers try to stand up for their dignity, for their rights, for the improvement of their conditions?
Yeah, so what happens is what always happens and has happened across history whenever a workforce or workers try to organize and speak up and stand for what's right, is retaliation. As simple as that. So workplace retaliation, they get fired. Some of them, they get sued. And here is an important fact. Most of these workers, they have signed they can only start working when they have signed an NDA. And that NDA prohibits them from speaking about what they do, the nature of the tasks, speaking about who is the task provider or the client. They cannot say anything like this. Many workers, in this case, content moderators or also workers who have done this work for ChatGPT, who have been inclined to look for mental health support, they were afraid that if they went to a therapist and would tell them what's going on, they would be breaking the NDA and therefore would be liable for a legal lawsuit. Right. So they wouldn't even look for mental health support. They wouldn't even tell their friends or their families what they were doing.
It's the abused person who hides their wounds from law enforcement.
Exactly.
For fear of retaliation by their abusive partner.
Exactly. And that also prevents many workers from organizing because they are not sure to which extent they can talk to colleagues about that. That is in cases in which they have colleagues to talk to. Let's remember that in many cases, people work from home, and it is not like Uber drivers who would maybe meet on the streets or delivery riders who would, recognize each other from their bikes or whatever. If you work from home as a data worker, chances are you would never meet another data worker, at least not in person. There are many, forums and Facebook groups in which people gather virtually, but it is hard to meet other data workers. And then if you met them, you never know where are the limits of if this is an NDA, if I'm breaking the NDA or not, if I'm violating any rules or not. So people are not very inclined to talk. This is why we also really appreciate, the people who collaborate with us and who are so brave speaking up.
The irony of a data worker group organizing on a Facebook group is not lost on me. What's the ethical version of this work? Who's doing it well, right? There's always a version of the world we want to see that actually exists. And maybe it's not the biggest players or the most well-funded. Maybe they're not super public companies with trillion-dollar valuations. But please bring me out of this low place that I'm feeling right now and tell me, not that it's all going to be okay, but that it's okay somewhere, and that we could try to repeat that model elsewhere.
I'm not the most optimistic person here, so I'm not your girl if you need someone to tell you, oh, it's going to be great. But there are places in which things are better than most places. That has always to do with smaller type of projects and smaller AI, I would say. So not, projects that don't envision an AI that works for everyone, but an AI that works for specific communities. And in my experience, those projects have succeeded also in engaging data workers in a way more meaningful manner, in a way more humane way, and in a way that, that is fair, that values their expertise, their work. And let me tell you one thing. This is not just about doing the right thing. I'm not appealing to, for a change, to a change of mindset because, oh, please be decent people. This is the right thing to do. This is good business. These workers, they have expertise that would save those managers a lot of back and forth and testing and retesting and, retraining and cleaning data sets if they would listen, if only they would listen. So those smaller projects, they are showing that collaborating with workers, of course, they are not outsourcing through platforms and employing workers on the other side of the work. They work closely with data workers who, in most cases, belong to the same communities that these technologies are aiming at impacting.
Who are these companies, these smaller AI companies? What sorts of products or services are they running? Can you name some names in a good way?
One of them is Lesan AI. That's Asmelash Teka, my colleague at Dare, who has been...
Lesan. Lesan.
Yes, right.
Lesan AI.
Lesan AI. He's been working... So he's been tackling a small, let's say small, fundamental problem, and that is that machine translation doesn't perform well in so-called low resource languages. So he is specifically targeting two Ethiopian languages, Tigrinya and Amharic, and trying to create a technology that performs well in those languages, to translate from Tigrinya to English, from Amharic to English, or to translate between Tigrinya and Amharic. With the result that now Lesan AI is outperforming Google AI and most commercial machine translation technologies out there. How Asmelesh has created that? Well, he has really recruited data workers and, in general, people from the region. Yeah. He works closely with them. They collaborate with them. So, that's an example of, technologies that can work well and perform well and still respect data workers.
Where do you think we come in? We, the humans, those of us who are not CEOs or not sitting on regulatory bodies of governments who might impose some restrictions. But we are creating accounts with these systems. We are querying them. We are using the features embedded increasingly in the software and other systems like our cars and our phones and our word processors. What choices do we have? What voices do we have? And what power do you think we have to create a more ethical worker situation underpinning all of this AI?
I think I could answer this question in two ways. One is, well, if we accept the world that we have and the world as it is right now, probably we won't feel that we have a lot of options other than, I would invite you all to maybe consider it. Really, do you need to be asking ChatGPT that stupid question? Do you need to upload yet another picture of your breakfast? Does the world need to see that, and therefore, make global warming worse through, data centers and so on? Like, do we need all that? Do we need to put everything on the cloud? So that's answer A. Answer B would be, we can still imagine otherwise. We can still imagine a world in which we don't need AI for a lot of things. We can still imagine a world where AI technologies and any other technology, for that matter, is being built by specific communities with their needs in mind, where we don't have, big tech technology with big tech companies dictating what we need to need, actually. Or we can have big tech companies using all that power and all that knowledge and technology for something that serve specific people. So, I don't know, the possibilities are endless. It's just that we need to dare to imagine otherwise. And that's a very, very hard thing to do. At least it's very, very hard for me. I am a scientist because I'm rather inclined to stick to the facts. But I think it's a good exercise.
In your own choices about the technologies you use, are there some you have opted out of or boycott?
After working with those workers who have trained ChatGPT, it's ChatGPT definitely. I also don't work with image. Also, I have to say I don't really need to because I'm not a designer or whatever. I don't work with graphics mostly. So I don't use anything that is image generators because also we have worked with artists who are going through a very, very rough patch right now. So I don't do that. And I also don't do TikTok because of the energy consumption that comes with it. And I have a 19-year-old, I've tried to educate her. I have not been successful, I have to say.
But I'm sure your 19-year-old is very glad that you're not on TikTok.
Oh, she's very good. She's a TikToker, so that's the irony of it.
She's like, I don't want mom in this room with me anyway. So you do your moral thing. You be ethical over there, mom. I'm going to do my TikTok thing over here.
Exactly. So, yeah, the irony of it.
You are a complicating factor for me, Mila, right? on my own journey. And I mean that as a compliment. I think that I have benefited greatly and enjoyed my own experimentation and exploration with these AI tools. I don't want to be complicit in exploiting anyone. I think most people don't. It's like, it's why I buy the meat the way that I do. I go to the farmer's market and I know Chris, right? And I know how he treats these animals, and that's my preferred way to do it. And I have the privilege of being able to do that because I live near a market and I have enough money to buy the meat at that price. And so when it comes to the technology choices and the AI choices, I want to be similarly empowered, right? I want to ask those questions. I want to knock on the door of all these providers and signal to them that this is important so that they get right. If the workers alone can't make it happen, which they rarely have been able to do, the demand side has to demand better. And so I'm just adding my voice to what I can feel coming through your research and your collaboration with these people, that everybody's got to step up, because we cannot use this potentially bright new future to bring back the darkest moments from our past and call it progress. That is unacceptable. But we don't have to. We can imagine better, like you said.
We all have power. We all have an audience in a way, right? The teacher has their students. You, Baratunde, you have this wonderful show. People write, people have a blog, people tweet. I don't know. We all have an audience. So make sure to speak about data work, to let everyone, your family, your friends know, so that everyone knows that with these technologies that we are using, or behind these technologies that we use almost everywhere and every day, that these workers are powering them, they are fueling them, and they are not doing great. So that is very, very important for everyone to know. Spread the word.
We will help in spreading that word. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Whew, what a season this has been. Yo, it is impossible to synthesize and summarize nearly 30 episodes, but I'm having some big feelings and big reflections about a few of the themes that have stuck with me most. The spread of AI will have a massive impact on work, creativity, and the value of human labor, and often not in a good way. I don't say this lightly. The economic incentive to flood the zone is so much greater than our collective governing capacity to limit the chaos and harm caused by frauds, scams, and deepfake noise. Our lives are going to integrate with machines in every domain. And nothing has taught us this more than our experience with Blair, where we've learned firsthand that the best way to learn about this topic is to directly participate and engage, even and especially when it's uncomfortable. Robots do not need to be like us. Please cue Kendrick Lamar's Not Like Us every time you see a robot trying to look humanoid. And also, subscription business models probably shouldn't be applied to emotional relationships. It's too rife for abuse. At the end of the day, there are some amazing things coming. And I can't predict all the outcomes. No one can. But I can share what I want to see. I want to see this great power used to accelerate the best parts of us, to augment our capabilities where we fall short, and to accommodate those who previous systems have excluded. Thank you for being along with us. It means so much to me and the entire Life with Machines team. Now, for an extended version of this episode, check out Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. And like I said up top, subscribe to our newsletter at lifewithmachines.media. Stay in the loop and check out some new content we'll be posting over the summer. Plus, be the first to know about season 2. Thanks for being on this journey with me. I cannot wait to keep it going. Peace. Literally, to all the machines. Peace. We come in peace. That's the whole point. I am not even joking right now.